I want you guys to come out to Lockhart, Texas, September 6th through the 8th of this year, and we are going to hang out. We are having our second annual Philip Ludwell III Orthodox Fellowship Conference, and check out this lineup of speakers. Alphonse Venn, Dr. Don Livingston, Father Filaret, Father Joseph Honeycutt, Jim Jatras, Ben Dixon, Father Peter Heers, Dr. Clark Carlton. We are also having a VIP reception where I will be doing a live broadcast of the Counterflow podcast. My guests will be Father John Whiteford, Conrad from the World War Now podcast, Jim Jatras, and none other than the lady herself, Dissident Mama Rebecca, will be on with us as well. It's going to be a great time. Again, it's going to be September 6th through the 8th. It's our second annual Philip Ludwell III Orthodox Fellowship Conference. For more information, please go to southernorthodox.org and check out their events page. Come hang out. Let's do this.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in half, but I call the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you out of Lockhart, Texas, with my guest today, Father Peter Heers. He's back on the show. I brought Father Peter on because I wanted to have him explain to you and myself about Mt Athos, basically the mystery of Mt Athos, the mystical nature of Mt Athos, the beauty, what goes on there. And coincidentally, maybe not, Father Peter and myself, along with some others, are taking a pilgrimage to Mt Athos this month. And so I bring some of that up. And for you guys that want to go, and for myself who's going, I have some questions. So we're going to get into all of this today. You are probably very well familiar with Father Peter Heers, Orthodox priest and founder and editor-in-chief over at the Orthodox Ethos, and about to be my tour guide at Mt Athos. Father Peter Heers, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
Good to be back with you, and also to be going with you to a very special place. I'm looking forward to talking about it today.
Yes, talk about, I suppose it could be like the chance of a lifetime. That's what people have told me when I say I got this invite and we're going to, oh, well, you got to go. And it's true. I suppose who knows, I might never make it back there again. But that place, for those wondering what we're going on about, is Mount Athos. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we jump in, you've been on the show before, and everyone probably that watches my show knows who you are. I don't know, though. We go up against each other in the same time slot sometimes on Tuesday nights. Like, you're my competition. They always, in the live chat, why do you have to be on when Father Peter's on? But let people know who you are, what you do, and about businesses you run, whatnot, and we'll go from there.
I'm happy to try to work it out so we don't have to compete, because I think everybody should be watching both of the podcasts. So, obviously I'm an Orthodox priest. There's a lot you could say, I guess, but I did do my undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral work in dogmatic theology under Professor Dimitrios Telengidis in Thessaloniki, where I lived for 20 years, from 1998 to 2017. And then I went to the Holy Trinity Seminary in Jordanville and taught about a year and a half. And before I was called down to help start a Orthodox school just in Florence, Arizona, dedicated 3 hierarchs, where I was the headmaster for a couple of years. We started during the insanity of COVID, the Orthodox Ethos podcast. And without knowing that all the world is going to break loose in about 3 weeks, we literally just providentially started right about that time. And I think, a lot of our work's been, a lot of our lives have been, sealed with this new post-COVID reality. And certainly our work online, for better or worse, I guess, among different people, has been sealed by our stance that we took during the COVID period with regard to the lockdowns and the church shut-ins and all the stuff that went on. But we've been doing this work in the Greek world I mean, I was in the early 2000s, I was very active in Greece, in Greek, giving lectures. For instance, we had, just to give you an example, we had the blessing of having Father Damascene, the abbot of St. Herman's Monastery, come over to Greece, and we translated for him. I was also involved in the translation of the life of Father Seraphim Rose, the translation of the life of St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. I wrote the preface to both of those works in Greek and to his book on St. Augustine. And so during those years in Greece, we were very active in in a variety of ways. Ended up starting with Ancient Faith, the podcast, Postcards from Greece, and did that for a number of years. Anyway, we could go on and on. We got a number of books they've written. People can check all that out at the uncutmountainpress.com or orthodoxethos.com websites.
Yes, I highly recommend Uncut Mountain Press. You guys published that book that, let's see, it's so many essays, Let No One Fear Death, I believe, during that time. What a fabulous book. You know, you hear these things. Certain things helped me get through this time period. That sort of content helped me and told me too, that's when I found the church. And it's not that has to match up with things that happen, but it did tell me, like, okay, it seems like this church that I've discovered has the truth, and it's, let's see, brave enough to fight against a thing that almost no one else was fighting against. And so I found that extremely helpful.
Yes.
Another thing you're doing. Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say that's interesting. I remember we talked about this before, and it's so fascinating for me because I think it's a massive opportunity even today, and we'll probably going forward we'll have more of these kind of crazy adventures. And so the church has to get in there and give the witness of the truth. It's a question of salvation for so many people.
Yes, and I'm lucky. My parish here in Lockhart, Texas, also where you'll be at some point in the next month or so. We'll get to that at the end. Never closed. And we had I don't know if you heard about this, I don't know how national the news was, but we had a major freeze. I think it was 2021 where things were just shut down all over the place. And in a town of 13,000 people here, I would guess we have 40 churches at least. And ours was the only one open to feed people, shelter people, give them diapers, that sort of thing. And that hit too, like, that's what Christianity is supposed to be.
Yes.
And
awesome.
Not closed up like
Beautiful.
a lot of the other places. Yes. So before we get into the Mt Athos thing too, you and your brother, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. I had him on a live stream to talk about a documentary you guys are putting together. Friend of the show, John Heers. Tell people about that really quick and how they can donate and help you guys with that as well.
Yeah, you bet. We just did a live stream, as most people might know, last night. And so last night would have been, days ago, because you're not going to know this for a while. But in any case, we did a live stream on the Orthodox Ethos platform, which I think if people really are interested in the documentary, they should check that out. I think it was very informative, interesting for us as well. I mean, it's an adventure we're embarking on, and we're embarking on along with a lot of other people who are supporting us through the Indiegogo page. We've launched the Indiegogo fundraising page. We're up to about $85,000. But our goal is much higher because these things are very expensive. But this is a documentary. It's called Christianities with a question mark. Journey to the Heart of the Faith, basically, is the subtitle. But it's going to be a very interesting approach, not the typical Orthodox Ethos, Uncut Mountain Press approach at all, in the sense that we're not going to be doing apologetics or dogmatic theology or anything like that. We're going to be encountering and embracing people from all kinds of different backgrounds, including non-Christians, in search of not so much an answer to the question of who is Christ for us. We as Orthodox, for 2,000 years, we know, like, it's been handed down to us. Nobody's asking me who I think Christ is, right? Nobody's asking me to create some kind of new theology or anything. It's not even a debate for us. We just are following the Holy Fathers. That's what it means to be, in large part, an Orthodox Christian. You follow the saints for 2,000 years that it's been handed down to us. But it's more to encounter all the various forms of Christianity, the Christianities, as we say in the documentary, to understand everyone's perspective and also bring the discussion to, let's say, hey, what's going on? How do we have this reality today? How is it possible that we have thousands of Christianities so different from one another? And to get and to also just to present, we're going to present, Athos. We're going to go to Athos, God willing, Georgia, maybe Romania. We're going to present Orthodoxy, but it's going to be also, we're going to present the views of others. We're going to view the people who aren't Orthodox, people who are Roman Catholic, Protestant, atheist. And we think that the truth will just shine forth without us having to discursively try to convince anybody of anything.
Right.
And that's how Christ was. If you remember how Christ, he walked, he preached, he talked, but people were moved by the presence and person of Jesus Christ, the grace of God that overwhelmed them, and he left them all free, right? He didn't try to pressure anybody to be his disciple. He called them, but he left them free. And there were a number of occasions where people walked away.
Yes.
And he's let them go. And so the very presence of the incarnate Logos, the truth in the world, as you know, it is that which divides, it's that which inspires, is that which calls or doesn't call, depending on our response. And so that's how we think this film should probably be done as well, in a very Orthodox fashion. And I think there is huge need to remember this, right? So Orthodox mission, how's it? It's going to be very interesting. We're still working through it, believe it or not. And we had this great filmmaker who's going to be with us, who's done work for Tucker Carlson and has done his own documentaries. His name is Scooter, or Stephen Downey. He's going to be the director, and he's produced this trailer for us that you can check out on the Indiegogo page or on most of our social media today. And it'll get you a little introduction. But it will be a journey. It will allow everyone to have their voice. There's not going to be any straw manning of anybody. Rather, the opposite. We're going to steel man, as they say. Everyone's going to have their time and their place, and it's going to respect everyone, whoever is involved in the documentary. And I don't know if I can't really say everything, because really it's going to be an adventure for us. Like, it's going to be an interesting journey for us.
I love the manner in which you guys are doing it. I saw a couple of either questions or comments in the live stream last night that you and your brother did. Well, you should convince them to be Orthodox or push. It's like, I love the way you're doing it. And maybe that is kind of within the Orthodox phenomena, if you will, but that's in my nature too. Like, I'm just presenting this stuff. You're free to do with it as you please. I'm not here to sell you on something or to push my beliefs, because don't push your beliefs on me, that kind of thing. And I think that's more effective in the long run.
Not going to be at all relativistic. It's going to be far from relativism, but people think immediately, if you don't push, proclaim, declare, that means you're weak or you're relativistic. That does not follow.
Right.
The Lord said, whoever wants to be my disciples, pick up his cross and follow after me. He left it to us. And he said, those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. So the presence of truth in the world, in and of itself, is very powerful. And each one of us have to decide. We have to decide, are we interested in that, right? And so if we have ears to hear, eyes to see, what is that pointing to? It's pointing to the internal situation of each human being. And so the idea that I, as another fellow human being who am struggling with my own, old man, can somehow humanly make you anything is delusional, right? It's God's grace. He's the one that's searching. And the hearts, he's the one that's chasing after every single human being to bring him into communion with himself. There's another thing this kind of ties into a lot of different stuff. It's a question of methodology, the question of mission, the question of witness. All these things are really interesting, fascinating for me as a priest and somebody who's trying to share Orthodoxy. But this idea that I remember I had people in my parish back in Greece, even, which shows you how far this idea has reached in the villages of Greece. They were saying, Father, you have to do more to attract people to the church. You have to. The implication was I have to humanly become something worldly or something attractive on a human level to make that. Then that'll pave the way for them to come to church. And you see this, of course, written large in the mega churches and all these evangelical churches. Like, what's the missing thing? Well, we're not doing good music, or we're not doing, whatever. This is absolutely wrong. It's wrong in so many ways. And I said to my parish council, I said, absolutely not. I don't have to do anything. What I need to do? You know what God wants me to do? Be faithful. Get out of the way for him, because when I'm faithful, what happens is he says, I can bring people to this place because this person's faithful. Yes. And they're going to find what I want, what I handed.
Yes.
And this person's not going to give himself. He's going to give me. He's going to get out of the way. And so I said to them, we don't need to be anything but faithful and get out of God's way and let him work. And I think that's the same thing with this approach to this documentary is it's delusional. If I put myself into it, of course I'm not going to be not a part of it, but I'm trying my best to not be my ideas and my desires to drive it.
Right.
No, get out of the way and let God shine forth. And we can talk about in many ways how that happens. But anyway, that's our struggle with this documentary. It's going to be very interesting.
I have to tell you about something to help you out. The world's largest offshore event taking place entirely online. You hear that, online, from October 7th through 11th. It's going to be put on by our friend Mikkel Thorop, host of the Expat Money Show, the highly sought after expat consultant with over 2 decades of experience. In this offshore event online, like we said, you will discover why international diversification is a must for those looking to preserve their liberty and wealth. You will learn everything you need to know about crafting your perfect plan B. We all should have that. Maybe plan C, plan D, and so on. How to quickly acquire a second passport, diversify your finances offshore, invest in international real estate, and get in-depth insights on geopolitics from world-renowned experts. And these are the actual real experts, not the experts kind that we've been promised to trust. Headline speakers include Dr. Ron Paul, Doug Casey, friend of the show Scott Horton, Tom Woods, Mark Faber, Tom Luongo. A lot of those names have been on this show, so you guys are going to want to tune into this online, like we said, October 7th through 11th. To reserve your complimentary ticket, head over to expatmoneysummit.com. That is expatmoneysummit.com. Let's get back to the show. It is. I'm excited. When we go to Mt Athos, is any of the stuff for the documentary taking place on this trip that we're going on? Or is that...
So that's interesting you asked, because I've been trying to get our crew, even before we started fundraising, to go to Athos. I went last October, and now I'm going again. And the reality is it's not time yet. I don't know why. For whatever reason, we can't get over there. We need to get the director and John over there. But I also need to talk to the Athenites. The Athenites are wonderful, but they're not people who sit down in front of cameras.
I've noticed.
That's not what they do, right? They're not interested at all. So I'm struggling still to find out how we're going to work this. We want to go to Athos, obviously, and as I said last night, we want to show the world the right hand of St. Mary Magdalene that is still warm after 2,000 years of touching Christ after his resurrection. I mean, this is one of the most amazing things, I think, on the face of the earth. Or the left ear of St. John Chrysostom, which tradition says the Apostle Paul spoke to. And he was seen by his disciple as the Apostle Paul sitting and whispering in the ear of St. John Chrysostom. And his ear is incorrupt to this day. And it's really amazing to go and observe, right? So this is Athos. Athos is the ark of Orthodoxy. It's the physical and spiritual heart and center of the Orthodox Church in preserving so much of the physical and spiritual inheritance of the church. And so, it's like walking into somewhere and they're like, trying to bring the world in. They're not interested in, for the most part, but we're going to do our best. We will be certainly taking footage and things. We'll see if we can use it for the documentary, and we'll go from there.
I'm so excited about this. You kind of just touched on it there, but I want to officially get it out as a question so you can answer as you please here. What does Mt Athos represent within the world, within Orthodoxy, etc.?
Well, Athos is, there's a reason why we called our press Uncut Mountain Press. There's 2 reasons. The first reason is it's the mother of God in the Old Testament, the prophecy of Daniel. Right, the stone cut without hands, and so she is the uncut mountain. So this is named after and dedicated to her. But Athos is also the uncut mountain. It's the contemporary, uncut mountain, in the sense that for me, as someone who lived in its shadow and went there probably 50 times over the last 25 years, it is the place that you encounter the diachronic presence of Jesus Christ in the lives of these men who are who are struggling, warring on a daily basis, noetically against the old man, against the devil, against the world. And therefore, they are getting out of the way and allowing God to work and be present in the world through them. They're not just preserving, because we don't do that in Orthodoxy. We don't just preserve, we live. It's a living reality and a tradition. So in Athos, you're encountering the heart of the church, as I said earlier. You're encountering the arc of the church. You're encountering the heart of the Orthodox tradition. And this is, Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. This is really important for the Western world and Western man to understand that when we say he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, we're talking not just about the person of Jesus Christ who sits at the right hand of God the Father. He's not just there, is he? He's also on earth, isn't he? Where is he? In his body. So one and the same time, he's on the throne with the Father, and he's in Hades, and he's present in this world, in the church, and through the church, in the lives of the saints. And so that's Athos. And so, the church is par excellence the saints. You go to the book of Revelation, what do you see? You see them, all the elders around the throne, worshiping the Lamb, right? That's the saints of every age. And Athos has been the how can I say it? What's the word I want? Of the saints. It's been the where so many saints are produced from Athos. Mm-hmm. Right? If you go back the last 1,000 years, this is what's kind of blows my mind with some of the of our more, let's say, academic rationalists in our midst. They seem to easily dismiss Athos. But if you dismiss Athos, you're dismissing the center of the church for 1,000 years, or at least 500 years since the fall of Constantinople, and you're dismissing hundreds, if not thousands, of saints at the same time.
Incubator for the saints.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like people, it always makes an impression on me. People talk about the Philokalia, right? And all these academics talk about the Philokalia, right? But where did that come from? Who did it come from? It came from St. Nicodemus and St. Makarios, the Kolivadis fathers on Athos, the ascetics on Athos. It came from St. Pais Velitskovsky. And these are the men who, in the same, like the breath after they praise the Philokalia, they reject the pedalion, or they reject the canons, or they reject the question, of reception. Same people, same font, same center of the church. And so, to me, it's like it's a touchstone of are we really seriously Orthodox? We're going to venerate Mount Athos. There's just no way around it. Like, you can't be Orthodox and not venerate Athos, because it's at the heart of the church for the last 500 to 1,000 years. So I can't stress enough, like a pilgrimage to Athos after a pilgrimage to the tomb of Christ in Jerusalem. Like those two should be on your bucket list of what I should, as an Orthodox Christian, what I really, really want to do one day. Go to venerate the tomb of Christ, maybe Sinai as well, but also as a man, at least go to Athos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's people that, I don't know, might hear this, that find in the algorithm, and they're going to say, why aren't women allowed on Mount Athos? What's the reason?
There's one woman who is allowed.
Yes.
She's the Theotokos. She's the Panagia, the all-holy one. And she, tradition says, she came in during her own life with the Apostle John, and they landed on Athos, and she said, "This will be preserved for me, for those who love me and serve my son." And of course, Athos, going back over 1,000 years, really, we have hermits in the 7th, 8th, 9th century. We have the first monasteries in the 9th century, early 10th century. And so over 1,000 years, almost 100 years, we have a living, continual presence of monastics. Now, they aren't interested in the things of this world. They're not interested in, obviously, marriage and being given in marriage. They're not interested in raising children. They're interested in the things of the bridegroom, right? They're interested in the next life. They're interested in entering into the kingdom of heaven now. So that's their place. That's their home. Like, they get to do that. They get to say, this is what I want to be in my house here. All 2,000 of them. And before, 100 years, 150 years, it would have been all 15,000 of them. Back in the end of the 19th century, Athos had tens of thousands of monks. Unbelievable. to imagine it. I mean, 2,000 seems like a lot to me when I go there.
Yes.
And so that's what they want, and they're going to live that life. And in the minute you introduce women or children or the worldly life on Athos, you're basically going to undermine the way of life of the ascetics, which is anahoresis in Greek, which means I depart, I leave. Right? Athos was not mainly a missionary or a teaching center. That's not what Athos has been for 1,000 years. It's been a place of departure. And you go there, and the old monks would say it would be almost like like they would boast. I mean, not really, but people would boast for them. He never left Athos. He's been here 70 years, never set foot on the boat to go back to Thessaloniki or whatever, right? That's what it meant to be an Athonite. You left the world. Now, things have changed in the last 50 years because so many people are going to Athos, right? I mean, when I went in 96, there's a little tiny boat. We could fit maybe 50 people on it, and it would go once a day. Now he's got these massive boats, several of them a day, or not the massive boat, one a day, but there's a lot of small speed boats, and there's two sides, and you're talking maybe hundreds a day, right? So things have changed pretty drastically for Athos in the sense that technology and ease of travel have brought people from all over the world in a big way. And that's good and bad. It's good and bad, mostly bad probably, but good for us who want to go and visit. But it's bad for the monks because they're not interested. That's not what they're there for, right? They're interested in worshiping God. And, in the Old Testament, talking about Moses, and, he says, do as you saw on the mount, right? And that's how I kind of feel like Athos is for the church. It should be for the church. Like, what you see on the mount, do that. Because this mount, and it's so interesting throughout history, there's all these mountains that play a huge part, right? Sinai and Horeb and, the various mountains in Asia Minor during the first millennium where there's all this monasticism. But there's something about mountains that are important in the history of the Christian world. And this mountain is so special. And so, I don't know. I think I've answered that it's for the Mother of God. It's dedicated to the Mother of God. She's the one. She's kind of jealously guards it. And the monks themselves have left that behind. They're not interested.
What sort of technology is there? As far as what, I assume there's not a lot of, you're not encountering TVs, radios, etc.
So, technology is interesting because Athos is not anti-technology. It's not like they're not Luddites at all. Yeah, okay. That's not, and Orthodoxy doesn't have hangups about technology. Insofar as technology is controlled, limited, used properly, then of course the Athonites will say, okay, that it's possible. But if it moves beyond its boundaries, then it's anathema. So it depends what we're talking about. You will go to Athos has 20 main monasteries. They've divided up the whole peninsula. We should say for everybody who's just has no idea what Athos is, this is a peninsula in northern Greece, in Halkidiki. There's 3 legs in this peninsula. This is the third to the east, and it juts out into the Aegean Sea. And there's 20 monasteries that rule the whole peninsula. It's an autonomous republic, essentially, self-governing in the sense that it's self-governing internally, but it's in the state of Greece, the modern state of Greece. So it's protected by the state of Greece, but essentially it's totally autonomous, and everything has to pass through what's called the Holy Community. All the representatives of the 20 monasteries, they have these gatherings several times a year where they discuss all the issues that are facing the peninsula. And so the 20 monasteries, but then there's also hundreds and hundreds of little houses, monastic houses. So especially in the southern part of Athos, it's called the Desert of Athos, Katonakia, St. Anne's. Like if you know the new Saint Ephrem of Katonakia, or Saint Joseph the Hesychist lived basically in the desert of St. Anne's, Katonakia, and St. Basil's Skeet. This is all down in the corner, the southwestern corner of the peninsula. So they've got hundreds of these little cells or houses, monastic houses, where you have 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever numbers of monks. And they're all autonomous. Like they all live according to the particular spiritual father or elder in the cell. Or they just live on their own. And so that's kind of the makeup structurally of Athos. And there's a center there called Cardiès, which is like the capital It's just a little tiny village, but got all the representatives and all the houses there. And you've got buildings going back 700, 800 years, 1,000 years. Some remains at least, but I think the oldest church goes back, I want to say, to the 1300s. That's the church in Carries, the Protaton. That's where all the representatives meet and do joint divine services. Anyway, there's so much to talk about. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. I keep having more questions as you speak. I'm trying not to make it too selfish and think and ask you like, oh, are we going to do this? This is for my whole audience. But how many jurisdictions or which jurisdictions are represented there?
So the whole of Athos is under the Patriarchy of Constantinople. Whether you're from Russia, from Bulgaria, from Serbia, these are all monasteries that exist. So there's a Bulgarian language or speaking monastery called Zographou. These monks come from Bulgaria. There's a Russian monastery, St Bartolomé, one of the largest physical monasteries on Athos. And it used to have thousands of monks. And they had a number of small, not really that small, skeets and kelia, which had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands. One of them had thousands. So we're talking about, Russians were probably, I don't know actually the number, but maybe 8,000 to 10,000 at the turn of the century, at the end of the 19th century. So there's a Russian monastery. There's a Serbian monastery, Serbian speaking from Serbia, all the monks. There's a Romanian large. For us, it would be a massive monastery in America, but it's called a skeet there. It's all Romanian monks from Romania, and there's a lot of small cells from Romania. There used to be a Georgian monastery. Iviron was the name of the monastery. It was started by Georgian monks back in the day. And then there's monks from all over the world that are, English-speaking Americans, British, French, Middle Eastern, whatever. But there's only one jurisdiction, and that's underneath the Patriarchate of Constantinople. And so whether you're Bulgarian or whatever you are, Greek-speaking, you're all under the Patriarchate of Constantinople. But that doesn't mean that the home countries don't play a big role in the life of that monastery.
You talked about the boat trips. Obviously, we're getting on a boat, I suppose, in Thessaloniki and then going to it. When people go, I'll let you answer
leave
that
from
first.
Moronopoli, actually. It's just down. Okay. It's just at the edge of the peninsula. That's where you leave the boat. You get on the boat.
How many people go there? And I suppose, do they stay? Like, we're staying there for several days. Is that common? Or is it people go for the day and then go back?
The normal period that you stay is 3 days. That's what you get a pass for. But if you are close or know the monks, and you can get an extension. So we'll be getting an extension. We'll be there for 8 days. And most people who've never been before, don't know anybody, they're basically just going and, choosing 3 monasteries to go to, or maybe go to one for 3 days. And participate in divine services, of course. That's the main reason you're going, is to pray. And participate in the life of the monastery to a limited degree. Because again, these are not missionary-oriented monastics, right? Well, like you might go to a place in America where there's families there on the weekends for divine liturgy. No. This is again, anahoresi in Greek, which means I depart from the world. So you're going and you're basically just kind of sitting on the edge of their life and peering in a little bit. Now, there are other monasteries that are far more missionary in practice, but that's not the Athonite way. That's a recent development because of the influx of so many people. So there's been some changes depending on the monastery you go to. There's other monasteries that are, you walk in, you're like, is anybody here? Mm-hmm. Because it's hesychia, right? It's hesychastic life, and they're not talking to you much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in talking to you. People get it. There's one monastery people go to and they're like, what's wrong with them? Well, you don't understand where you went. That's why you think there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in that, right? That you're going to their house.
Right.
It's easy to misunderstand people. And I've met many Germans or other people. A lot of Germans go to Athos. They love Athos. Like, they just think it's fascinating. For what, they go hike the mountain or something, right? So, but I've talked to them, and they're like, what's wrong with them? Why are these people like this? I was like, okay, well, try to understand where you went. Don't go there and expect them to be like you, because you didn't go to a German town. You went to an Athonite place. So it's important.
I want to compare, contrast, and kind of get the experience of what we might be doing to, let's say, what's a an average, maybe none of the days are average, but what's an average day like for a monk and just pick a monastery? And then how will we be living as well?
So an average day for a monk on Athos gets up. Well, maybe we'll say when the day starts. The day starts on Athos when the sun sets. They go by so-called Byzantine time, which really is just Roman time is really what it should be called. Byzantine doesn't. The term Byzantine is a whole history of it. It's a term created in the West 300 years ago. It was the Roman Empire, and these were monks, a part of the Roman Empire, and so the time then was set every day at sunset. That's when the 24 hours began. And that's where it still is on Athos. So the day begins when the sun goes down and then they go to bed. Almost all the monks are sleeping by the sunset. And so that could be 6 or 7 or 8 at night. And then basically they're sleeping. Of course, this is generally speaking, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of differentiations because they're not all the same, right? There's thousands of monks. So, but in different traditions, small, particular monastic ways of doing things that differ slightly. So, but generally speaking, 3 to 4 hours they'll sleep maybe, and then they'll get up. So maybe they're up by midnight, and then they start their prayer rule. And their prayer rule can go anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. That means the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And they're in their cell doing their prostrations. I'll give you an example. A novice in many monasteries would have something like the following rule, maybe more severe in terms of numbers, maybe less. It just depends on the person. Everything's really is malleable depending on the person we're talking about. We don't just it's not just like one size fits all. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, a young man who's trying to become a monk, who's a novice, would do 100 to 150 prostrations every night, full prostrations to the ground, right? Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, full prostration. And then he would say anywhere from 2,500 to 4,500 times, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. So he has a prayer rope of 300, not a 100 prayer rope, not a 33 prayer rope, but a 300 knot prayer rope. And he would say that 10 to 20 times, depending on his monastic rule. And then he would say 1/3 of that, Most Holy Theotokos, save us, Most Holy Mother of God, save us. And that's the prayer roll that could last from anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on the monastic and all kinds of things. So they're getting up at 12 and they're going to be praying until 2, 3, depending on when services start. They go down and everybody's got a job. So some people are getting the church ready. Some people are getting the refectory ready. Some people are doing something else. And so they begin the services probably around 3, usually, just on average, and they're done by 7. There's about 3 to 4 hours every morning. They're in church. That means the midnight service, orthros or matins, and hours, or maybe they just read 1 hour and then divine liturgy. And so then they, in most mornings, in most monasteries, they may or may not, they probably won't have immediately a meal unless it's a feast day, or some kind of exception. But many monasteries will, if they don't have a meal immediately, they'll have it at 11 o'clock in the morning, or they won't have a meal at all if it's a fast day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday is a fast day in the monasteries, not just Wednesday and Friday, but Monday. They fast because it's the day of the angels. So on those 3 days, there's no meal in the morning. So pilgrims will go and get their tea and some kind of small little something, and maybe monks too if they don't feel well or whatever. And then they go to sleep again. But not all monasteries, but some monasteries will go to sleep for 2 to 3 hours, and then they'll get up at 9, 10, whatever, and they'll begin their workday. And the workday will go to 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, depending on when services start again. And then they'll go for 9th hour and Vespers. They'll have the meal. I'm pretty sure almost every monastery has a meal in the evening, every day of the year, after the 9th hour. And so they'll have the meal, and then they'll have a break probably, and they'll go to comp line, or they'll go right to comp line. And then start the day over again. Go to bed, get up again. And so we'll be following that schedule. Generally, we'll be moving around, and so we won't stay in one place to get, involved in the work of the monastery, because we want to see different places, meet different people. We're going to go to cells. We're going to go to skeets. We're going to go to St Paisius the Athonite lived. and see the fathers there who to know. We're going to go, God willing, to Kapsala and see the fathers there, also disciples of St. Paisius of the Athonite, at the Skid of the Resurrection. That's Elder Thevios, as you will know. If you've been watching or heard about what we're doing every Thursday night on our podcast, it's called The Mystery of Christ. And that is the book produced by the fathers at that cell of the resurrection. We're going to go see them. We'll probably go to a variety of different places to venerate different relics and meet different fathers. And hopefully we'll go to the desert as well. We'll go to where St. Joseph the Heskest and his brotherhood lived. We'll go to where St. Ephraim of Katanakia. We'll probably go to Kerasia, which is really desert and hard to get to. And you can only get there either by foot or by donkey. There's no cars in that part of Athos at all. Everything's by foot or by donkey or mule. But we won't be staying in one monastery more than 2 nights out of the 8.
Okay. Talk about, you just mentioned him, St. Paisios, and he seems to be the one many of us know best from that area. What's the importance of him?
Yeah, that's the book that we translated with Bishop Alexei of Alaska. Bishop Alexei up in Alaska, he used to be a higher monk, and he was in Karakalo Monastery, and he translated probably most of it, and I translated 1/3 with a couple other people. Philip Navarro and others were involved. This is the book you want to read. This is one of the best books today for, I would say, catechism, introduction to Orthodoxy. It's all there. And you're going to see in the person of St. Paisios, the Orthodox tradition and the saints shine. But your question was, what in particular? That he's been definitive for the last 50 years of Athos.
Yeah. So is he, like, upon coming to the church, I hear his name more than most other saints. What does he represent? Why is he so important? And whatnot?
Yeah, I think that his person is so beloved all around the Orthodox world because he had this gift of communicating in a way that was both deep and simple. And so his life, but his many, many, many discussions with pilgrims and with the sisters at the monastery near Thessaloniki were recorded. And then they were made into books, and those books have been translated into all kinds of languages. And so he's just become so beloved because people sit at his feet and learn even to this day from these discussions, these recordings that have been transcribed. And he's so insightful, and he's so simple at the same time. And so everybody can learn from him. Everybody loves him. He left a huge inheritance. He had, of course, the many monks on Athos who became basically his disciple. He was never a priest, though. He didn't confess people, but many people would go to him for guidance. And we're talking thousands and thousands of people. I mean, I know when I lived in Greece for 20 years, I knew many, many, many older men in their 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, who all of them had a personal experience with Elder St. Paisios. Like, they all visited him at some point and got his blessing and heard him talk at his cells. I mean, we're talking during his life in the 80s and early 90s when he reposed in 94, the last 15 years of his life, thousands and thousands of people from all around Greece would go and find him in this little, Kalivi, this little hut where he lived. And miracles were performed and people were freed from their possession and from all kinds of, sicknesses and passions and everything. So he became this simple, unbelievably wise, Hiero, the elder of the Greek people. And then all of that was translated and published throughout the Orthodox world. So now he's beloved, in the far reaches of Russia. People just love St. Paisios. Mm-hmm. Same thing in English. So I think it's just his person and he represents at the same time the royal path in many ways, right? And so he's an Athonite. He's very, very serious, very strict on many, many things. He's Orthodox in everything, in the sense of he rejects the heresies of today of ecumenism and all the rest. But he doesn't become a zealot. He doesn't become a non-commemorator on the right necessarily, or somebody who goes into schism. So he's walking the royal path. And of course, it's unbelievably difficult for anybody to deny his sanctity. I mean, you've got to be really proud. Something wrong with you to deny the man has been totally glorified and sanctified. So he's got universal right for sanctity. Doesn't mean he's perfect in every last thing. Saints aren't in this world. They're not 100% always perfect everything they do. That's not what sanctity is. There's an internal increase in Christ, right? It doesn't end. So we don't have that kind of moralistic perfectionism, and we have that problem today. I think a lot of us converts coming from Protestantism, we have a problem in that way. So I think St. BOS heals many ailments that we have as Westerners.
Touch upon that. We have that problem today. Explain that.
Puritanism, moralistic approach to Orthodoxy, a kind of rationalism, approaching things that are mysterious in a rationalistic way, without humility.
Yes.
There's a lot of ailments, I think, in contemporary, and I'm talking about convert Orthodoxy. I'm not just talking about the Western world or Protestantism. I'm talking about us, me, as a convert from the West. I have seen in myself, and I still have a long way to go, that I carry with me the sicknesses of the heretical teachings that I was raised with. My mother and father were pious, wonderful people. My father became an Orthodox priest, but for decades they were Anglicans, and heterodoxy teaches heresy. Like there's numbers of heresy. Heresy matters. Like it's not insignificant. It affects you spiritually. It impacts you. It's like a doctor who doesn't know like the anatomy of the human being. He's going to do damage to you. Like if you have to do surgery with him, right? So it all matters. And so we need to come to Orthodoxy and the saints, not to Orthodoxy, the institution or the local parish, to the saints with an extreme humility.
Yes.
Extreme humility. Like for us, it seems very extreme. For most, it's just normal. But we need to understand, like, I don't know anything. I don't know what the spiritual life is. I don't understand what it means to be a spiritual person, a holy person. I don't. There's just too much. In the last 10 years, it seems like it's exponentially increased. Too many people who think that Orthodoxy is kind of like, they kind of own it because they got catechized and now they're going to go teach everybody. It's really problematic. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a huge problem coming in Orthodoxy. I don't think a lot of people see it. We're all hugely excited about this new wave of converts. Like everybody's talking about it. It's all around the Orthodox world in America. You've got all these young men especially young men coming to the church. And increasingly, we just got a thing came out called the Stephen Damick, and had a show talk about how there's a huge influx of people being baptized. That's very interesting. As somebody who's been talking about this for decades, I'm very excited to hear that people are understanding the need for baptism, and that there is no form of baptism outside the church. But all of that is wonderful. But are we being catechized, purified, that we can receive the grace? That's the question I have. I don't know. I'm not in all the parishes. I don't know. I'm a little worried that we're not. I'm seeing a little bit of the fruit, and I'm wondering, are we really being cleansed, purified, and catechized? Catechism means purification. It doesn't mean just learning about Christ, right? It means being cleansed and purified of all the garbage and the obstacles, both in your life and in your thinking, that will obstruct the grace of God when you go to that baptismal font. If you're not properly being prepared for that baptismal font, you're not going to have the influx. God's going to give everything. He's faithful. Are you going to be able to receive it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for the catechumen. It's true for all the Orthodox, whether you're being baptized or you're receiving communion, whatever it is. That same principle is true all across the board. And if we're approaching the holy mysteries without extreme humility and understanding self-knowledge and where we're at, I don't think we should expect a lot of spiritual fruit. We can have a huge influx of people who bring in their baggage with them and don't get cured. There's no guarantee you're going to get cured because you walked in an Orthodox church. You got to apply the medicine. You gotta strip yourself naked before the physician. He's got to see your sicknesses, right? You've got to smell the stench, as it says, as many people have said about you got to smell all that garbage that you've been in investing, the passions. So I'm concerned, and that's why somebody like St. Paisios or the Athonites or the ascetics or the saints, I mean, we've got to run to them. And that's, I think that's why you're excited about going to Athos, right? I mean, we're not going to Athos because we're tourists. We want to go to where the saints have lived, and where the holy things are, and the relics and the wonder-working icons, because that's where we're going to get healed. We're going to get purified.
Do you you must, I assume, this is a setup question almost. Do you see converts coming in and bringing kind of I suppose it's human instinct, their presuppositions, and where they will say, well, I don't know, that saint, what he said doesn't fit the things I've been taught prior to coming to Orthodoxy, so I don't like him as much. Or it seems like you're worshiping men. I don't get it. Same thing with icons of we've all heard this stuff. But do you hear some of that?
Sure. I mean, I don't hear a ton because maybe they're not coming to me with these kind of problems, but I hear about them.
Okay.
And I think, generally speaking, everyone, but especially the one who's wounded and he's seeking Christ, which is great. Glory to God, we all should be. But the one who's wounded, he's got problems with trust. There's a huge trust problem today, everywhere, on all kinds of levels.
Yes.
We don't trust institutions. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust priests. We don't trust the Pope. Nobody trusts anybody, anything. It's all, and that's demonically or orchestrated, right?
Yes.
And that's going on for generations upon generations. And we can go back to the schism. It's that deep. It's a 1,000-year-old process of basically destroying trust in everyone and everything, and of course, God, most important person. So all that's really at the heart of this. Like, what? Okay, I don't trust. Ultimately, it's like I can't trust. That's why I don't believe this saint is X, or I don't crucify my mind and accept Y. And so, how do you solve that? You don't argue them into trust.
Correct. Right.
That's not going to happen. So how do they get there? They got to experience it. They got to want it. They got to ask for it. Like what the Lord said, ask and you shall receive. You don't trust, ask and you shall receive trust. It's that the Lord is the source of every virtue, every grace, everything. And the way we approach it and receive it is simple. Ask, knock, seek, right? And that means constantly. That's why the Jesus prayer is going on the lips of the monks night and day, thousands and thousands of times every day. That's what the Lord taught us to do. Ask incessantly. Remember him always. So it means that at the heart of the Orthodox faith and the heart of becoming an Orthodox Christian is the ascetic struggle of crucifying the old man and the old ways. And if you don't have that disposition, I can't give it to you. No matter how many arguments we have, no matter how many principles I prove to you, it doesn't matter, right? This is post learning about Orthodoxy. Now we got to learn about ourselves. We're going to learn about how sick I am. That's after you learn about Orthodoxy. And there's a lot of people who learn all about Orthodoxy. They become experts, and now they're teaching us about Orthodoxy. But it's really not about Orthodoxy. It's about Orthodox theology. It's about Orthodox dogmatic theology, which is great. That's not really the life of the internal life of the church. Because there are people who teach dogmatic theology in seminary in universities around the world. They're not even Orthodox. So it doesn't matter, right? You've got to live that reality in the church, and then you can talk about it, and you can actually help a lot of people if you do.
What sort of things I'll use me for an example. I'm going to Mount Athos with you. What sort of things might I encounter that I want to purchase, for those listening who have a trip planned or something like that to Mount Athos?
Yeah. Well, we got a couple other podcasters coming with you. So they might want to listen to this before they get on the plane next week. So what do you want to bring with you? I think you want to bring not a lot of stuff. First of all, keep it very light. You want to bring the prayer rope. You want to bring your scriptures. You want to bring a life of a contemporary Athonite or ascetic or saint, so you can read and kind of enter in before you arrive into some of the spirit and mentality of the Athonites. You want to do some, I think, work in terms of like knowing where you're going. But beyond, carrying a lot of stuff is really not, I'm bringing camera if you want, I guess, maybe. But you don't need much. You're going to experience things and pray. Like, that's it. You can bring your toothpaste and a couple of changes of underwear, and you're gonna bring some shoes because you're gonna be walking a lot.
Okay,
you're gonna be walking a lot, especially if you go to the desert. We're gonna be walking hours uphill and downhill. So you want some good shoes, a lot of socks, change of shocks because they're gonna get sweaty. And we're going in August, and Yeah, maybe a little bit of detergent because you're going to have to clean some of those clothes in some water somewhere. Just on that. So it's very simple. It's going to be very simple things, right? It's not going to be. It's going to be kind of camping, a little bit of camp. Like even at the monasteries, you're in a room with like 4 other people or 10 other people, and you just got a cot. It's not like, I mean, there are places that are very nice too, some of the monasteries, but be ready for a very simple life for 8 days.
And what might we encounter to purchase from there? Icons, their stores and whatnot, books?
Yeah, sure. They have stores both in Cardias and Daphne, 2 places, in the sense that the monastics produce stuff, and then these stores make them available to the pilgrims. So icons and walking sticks and prayer ropes and, I don't know, pictures and images and things like that you would expect to find in an ecclesiastical shop. You might even find vestments or cassocks. If you're a priest, you can a lot of priests go and buy stuff there from the Athenites and for their priestly life. But yeah, so I would say mainly icons, books, prayer ropes. These are the things that are sold to the pilgrims.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. I'll let you have the rest of the time allotted here. I want to give you the floor and kind of let you speak about, again, for those out there who are interested in this or listening and just curious or scared or anxious about, I don't know if I could go there. There's a feeling I know for a fact that I've heard people tell me, even about a parish, I think I'm not good enough of a person to go there. So I can't imagine they must really have that feeling going to monasteries and whatnot. So speak on kind of generally this as we close out here.
Yeah, I think all those are understandable on a human level. I mean, for any reason, if we go to some place we're not familiar, we're not, part of it, we're going to have these apprehensions. But it's actually, in my experience, actually the opposite. The Athenites, first of all, the Athenites receive people from all over the world all the time. And a lot of them aren't even Orthodox. So non-Orthodox go to Athos all the time. But we have to go with a good disposition. That's the most important thing. The most important thing you come with is a good disposition, and be ready to be humbled. Be ready not to understand. Be ready to say, I don't understand this, but that's okay. I don't have to. Why do I have to understand? I don't understand. Like, why do I think I should be treated X and not Y? So I think we need to come in with, again, just begging God for extreme humility and opening my eyes to see things and accept things. There was this abbot, Gregory, he's reposed now, of Dokirio Monastery, which is beautiful monastery, and they have the icon of the Mother of God, who's quick to hear, one of the most famous icons in the Orthodox Church. He's the abbot there. He's very unique man. He reposed, but he was abrupt. Like, he would just put you in your place, and you were like, "Wow, why did he treat me like that?" And because you know why? I'll tell you why. Because we're proud. All of us are super proud. We immediately expect people to treat me really well. You got to treat me good, man, because that's just the way it is. So there's all the Athenites who are spiritual fathers, at least, and who have experience, because there's all kinds of Athenites, right? And Athos can't but reflect a little bit of, or maybe even more than in our days, of the state of the church in the world, because all those people that are there, they were in the parishes before they went to the monastery, right? So they're carrying with them the ease of contemporary life. Like Athenites who became monks in the 10s and 20s and 30s of the last century are very different than Athenites who became monks in the 10s and 20s of this century. Necessarily so, because they're coming from ease and comfort in the world, whereas the life of a villager in Greece 100 years ago was not much different than the life of an Athenite. Outhouses, no electricity, So on a very basic level, modernity and especially urbanization has been extremely destructive of the Orthodox way of life in the old country. The number one problem in my 20 years of Greece, living and being a priest in a village in Greece, number one problem that we faced, the thing that did the most damage to the Orthodox Church, it's not ecumenism, it's not philotism, it's not all these isms. You know what it is? Urbanization. The villager left his house and his home and his village of hundreds of years, maybe even 1,000 years, went to a new place where nobody was around him he knew. The church was far away. And the way of life was not Orthodox very much. I mean, it was still an Orthodox country and city, but now you have this burgeoning cities and people are lost. They get lost. There's no more community, right? So Athos itself reflects all these developments necessarily. So, of course, those men are leaving the world to do violence to the old man, right? So they're struggling against all that. But it does change things, right? It does change things. So I kind of lost track of what I was talking about, but I mean that's an interesting and important point that you're gonna go there and you're going to. Oh no, I was talking about Elder Gregory. I wanted to say about Elder Gregory is that these men are constantly, especially the ones abbots, elders, spiritual fathers. What are they doing night and day? They're like physicians. They're like surgeons, and first and foremost, they're monastics that are under them. They're doing surgery to get all those poisons and toxins out of their spiritual children, which is the pride. Ultimately, with one word, the most toxic thing that we have in us is our pride, our arrogance, our expectations that we're going to be treated like kings and queens and all the rest that goes on today. So that's got to go. If you're going to have any spiritual progress, that's got to go. So they're constantly doing this majestic, work of a surgeon. Spiritual surgeon. And so you walk into the monastery with all your passions and all your pride and all your whatever. You should be grateful, frankly, if you want to be cured. If somebody comes up to you and, teaches you just how passionate you are. Like it comes out of, you have an exchange and you say, oh my gosh, he taught he said that to me. And internally I got angry at him. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? So who are you exactly that you got angry at him? Mm-hmm. Oh, you're a passionate man who has all these roaring lions in you.
Yeah.
God allowed that for you. So it's a totally different perspective. It's not this kind, safe place, whatever it is that's going on today in most Christianity. Like this is like, okay, I'm going into the warfare, right? I'm going to learn what I'm really all about internally. I think that people who really come with a good disposition, it's the most important thing, come with a good disposition and be ready to accept everything that the providence of God serves up for you. Mm-hmm. You walk away benefited, right? You walk away benefit. And don't look at it, I'm going to venerate X icon and X relic. Of course, we're going to do that. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And the grace of God flows. But I'm really learning. I want to go and learn what it means to be an Orthodox Christian. I want to look at it in the face of these ascetics. I want to learn what it means to be Orthodox monk and Orthodox ascetic. I want to get a sense of the deep reality of spiritual life, right? That's what I think Athos really offers to everybody.
And Father Turbo told me, I assume he wouldn't care that I say this on a public platform, but any unexpected events, allow it, because that's the hand of God when you're at a place like that. So I thought
everybody says, all the years I've been going, people say, well, what should I do? Just pray and ask the Mother of God. It's her garden and she'll take care of you and she'll give you what you need if you want. If you want, because if you don't want, she won't. It's up to you. That's the question. What do you want?
Yep. Excellent. Well, I'll let you plug. Like we started with some plugs. You can plug on the way out just so people don't forget. Of course, I'm going to link to anything in the show notes page, the documentary, Uncut Mountain, anything you'd like. Orthodox ethos, of course.
Well, we're joining you when I'm actually going to fly back from Greece right to Austin, Texas.
Okay.
For a conference coming up. It's exciting.
Yes. Let me talk about that real quick. Thank you for doing that. It's the, if you go to southernorthodoxy.org or southernorthodox.org, you can find out about this conference. Father Peter Heers will be with us. Clark Carlton will be with us. Goodness gracious. I'm doing a live counter. Jim Jatris, my guy. Yes, he's going to be with us. It's going to be very cool. It's in Lockhart, Texas. I will put a link for that as well on the show notes page for this.
Father John Wyford, right? Isn't Father John Wyford speaking?
He's part of it.
He's part of it. No, Father Joseph Honeycutt speaking. That's right.
Joseph Honeycutt speaking. Father John Wyford, Conrad, Jim Jatris, and Rebecca, Dissident Mama, will be part of a live counterflow discussion we're going to have for the VIP tickets. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Again, everyone listening, I'll link to that in the show notes page for this. I'm so glad Father Peter jogged my memory to mention that. But anything else you'd like to plug?
Well, I just want to say for those out there who, for whatever reason, think that, Southern Orthodoxy is, what's the inner contradiction? I don't see any inner contradiction. I think it's wonderful that the Orthodox Church is looking at culture, history, identity, and trying to redeem. That's the whole mission of the church. You go in the middle of Africa with Father Cosmas Gregorio. We have a book we published, Apostle de Zaire. I recommend it highly to anybody who wants to know not only about Orthodox mission, but about the Athonite spirit in Orthodox mission, because he was an Athonite monk. But you go in the middle of Africa. What are you doing as an Orthodox missionary? And what does St. Herman do? What is anybody doing? And we're all kind of potentially Orthodox missionaries. We should be anyway. We're going, and the whole process is to redeem. Is to take the language, the history, the culture, the traditions, infuse, redeem, and offer up to Christ, and make it something that points people back to God, back to Christ, back to life in Christ. So whatever happened in the past, and people have all these kind of ideas and stereotypes, and this should be the work of the church in every place, Canada, Australia, whatever it is. And so I'm very excited to be a part of that. I'm going to do my little part to talk about, it's going to be more kind of a journey. I'm going to talk about going from, I was born in Dallas, but moved around a lot. Ended up, of course, in Greece, priest, Athos village. I'm talking about what the Orthodox village that I lived in for 10 years, what it has to do with like the culture in the South, as much as I can, try to connect that. So I'm excited because I think that's the work of the church, is like to bring people through Orthodoxy back to God. And as part of that is their whole culture and their whole identity has to be, blessed when it can be blessed, purified when it needs to be purified. So that's exciting. And hopefully we'll have a big turnout in Lockhart.
I hope so too. And I'm super excited about that. Father Peter Heers, thanks for doing this. I'm so stoked, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, you bet. We'll see you on the other side.
Yes.
Good, safe travel.
Thank you, sir. I'm so excited about this trip. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let's see. As for this show, counterflowpodcast.com, go to the YouTube page and hit subscribe. We drop these every Tuesday evening, and I'm live there in the chat with you as they premiere. Follow me on Twitter at BuckRebel, BuckRebel. Join the Telegram group, all the things, and go register for the Philip Ludwell III second annual Orthodox Fellowship Conference right here in Lockhart, Texas. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. And again, go to southernorthodox.org and check out the events page. You'll see all the details. Register. Let's see each other soon. You guys have a good one.
You get split in half, like on the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.